Have you been hearing a lot about living trusts these days? It seems like I'm getting questions about that right and left from clients asking about do I need a living trust? Do I need this kind of trust or that kind of trust? So let's just talk about that for a minute. What is a living trust? A living trust is a legal structure created during your lifetime, hence living, that you create and you put parameters around what happens to those assets that are in that living trust when you pass away. So that's definition of a living trust. And so what I'm hearing people say is that they're hearing that if you don't have a living trust, all of your assets are going to get lost to probate, and it's going to be really complicated, and it's going to be really expensive. And so this is the only way to go. And what I want to tell you is take a breath. Let's think about this, because a living trust can be really a great thing for some people, but it's not needed for everybody. So, when do you need a living trust? You need a living trust when you have assets outside the state of Texas. Why? Because if all of your assets are in Texas, things are easy. But if you have assets outside of Texas, if you have a second home in Colorado or some other things like that, then putting those assets into a living trust makes probate in Colorado or wherever else those assets are so much easier. So think about that. Another reason that you would want a living trust is if you don't want anybody to know anything about your assets when you pass. And some people are like that. I mean, I've got celebrity clients that don't want anybody to know what they own when they pass. And so they put all of their assets in a living trust. It never goes through probate, and therefore the whole world can't dive into county records and figure out what it was that they owned when they died. So that's another good reason. Another reason could be that you've got complicated family dynamics. If there's, exes and exes kids and things of that sort that you don't want them to know what's going on, then that could make a difference as well. So in those instances, I think a living trust is a really, really great thing. But from the majority of people, a good old-fashioned will does the trick, because what does a will do? It says, okay, when I die, this is where I want my assets to go. This is who I want my executor to be, and it's done. And that's really simple. And honestly, a will is really easy to write as opposed to a living trust. And so therefore, the cost is a lot less. There's other peripheral estate planning documents that you're going to need either way, powers of attorney, all those kinds of things. When you get with your estate planning attorney, they're going to go over all those things. But what I really want you to think about is that a living trust is a tool, and it's not a tool for everyone. And so when you're hearing that an estate plan, that you have to have a living trust for your estate plan to work well, step back and think about that, and talk to all your advisors. Talk to attorneys that you know, talk to CPAs that you know, talk to your financial advisors, because we all live in this world and of the financial advisory and the estate world and those kinds of things. And we see all kinds of things. So don't make these decisions in a vacuum just because everyone on social media says this is what you ought to do. So let's talk about a couple of questions that people are asking. So, here's a big one. Will a living trust save me on taxes? No. It's the same kind of situation. There's no, the trust that you're funding is a living trust. It's not even a separate entity from yourself. And so there's not a separate tax return. That's the good news, that there's not a separate tax return. But there's also no deductions to be created, no tax savings whatsoever. And there's also no estate tax savings in that regard either. A trust and a will, same things flow into your estate. And so that there's no savings there. And so that's a really big one. But the other thing is, some people are asking if If they already have a will, do they need to redo things? If let's say they do need a living trust, maybe they do, but there again, getting with really good, credible advisors makes all the difference in the world. In closing, here's what you need to think about. A trust isn't actually better than a will. A will isn't actually better than a trust. They're just different. So the key is figuring out which tool fits your situation. And we're here to help you with financial clarity and confidence for today and for life.